Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Wantrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and you all know that it's always hard to choose your favorite child if you're a parent. I'm not a parent, so I can't relate to that just yet, but I do feel like a parent when it comes to all of the incredible entrepreneurs and businesses that we get to have and feature here on the show. And I'll tell you what, as far as not picking favorites, it's hard to not say that today's guest in today's featured business is not one of my favorites, because this actually is, there's so many incredible things that they're doing behind the scenes that is so not only strategic and intentional, but it's so clear to me how deeply this founder and entrepreneur cares about the people that she serves, and in this case, the couples that she serves, because let me introduce you to today's guest. Her name is Hannah Roze. Hannah is the founder of Planner.com, which is a modern wedding planning platform designed to make the planning process simpler, more intuitive, and way less stressful. Inspired by her own experience planning a wedding and feeling overwhelmed by the process, she set out to create a suite of tools that empowers couples and wedding pros alike. With a background in technology and a passion for thoughtful, joyful celebrations, Hannah brings a fresh perspective to the industry, one that values community and leverages smart, user-friendly tools to elevate the planning experience for everyone involved. And trust me, when I say strategic and intentional, Hannah is a brilliant founder. That's why I always love to say that success leaves clues. So we're going to learn a lot from her as we learn about her incredible business. I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Hannah Roze. All right, Hannah, I am so very excited that you're here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Brian. I'm so glad to be here.
Heck yes. Like I said in the intro, it's not easy to not play favorites, but Planner is one of my favorite companies that I've come across, and we've been so excited to welcome you here onto the show. You're doing so many things right, Hannah, but before we get into those things, you've got to take us beyond the bio. Who's Hannah? How did you start doing all these cool things?
Yes, happy to. So Planner was really inspired by my own wedding planning experience, where we had the most amazing wedding planner. She had all the expertise in the world. But over the course of our 2 years of wedding planning, with COVID thrown in there, we really sent spreadsheets back and forth to one another, and we accumulated over 50 pages of email inbox threads. And my husband and I spent those years thinking, when 2.5 million people get married every year, why is this still so hard? And we're struggling through this process. And I sought out to find a better path for couples to really have an empowered and truly enjoyable wedding planning experience. So finding inspiration from my own experience, and we've been really enjoying the ride thus far.
Yes, I love that overview, Hannah, but I'm totally going to put you on the spot to go a little bit deeper here, because a lot of people go through these painful sorts of processes, and I think we all, non-entrepreneurs especially, they go through these things and they say, man, I wish there was a better solution. I wish there was a better tool. I wish there was a company that did this. Hannah, you clearly had that thought, but then you actually took action on it. What did that entrepreneurial spark look like for you?
Totally. During the wedding planning process, I was seeing so many parallels to my previous experience at Carta before business school. I was at Carta, the equity management platform, and their premise being bringing a diverse set of stakeholders around a complex exercise, the cap table, and needing to disseminate information and act as that source of truth for many different people. During the wedding planning process, I thought to myself, this is the exact thing that I've seen and tackled before. And seeing those parallels and knowing that there is a solution to build a platform, a hub, a source of truth, and then going out to the world and trying to understand, is this a problem that only I saw and experienced, or is this something that many couples are experiencing? And it was definitely the latter through all of our research and conversations with couples and wedding pros. So knowing that I had seen this similar problem in a fully different context made me really excited to tackle the problem. And then also knowing that it was truly something juicy and interesting to really sink my teeth into made me really want to dive in and get started. And business school on top of that doesn't hurt, where you're in that mindset of thinking of business problems, thinking of solutions, strategic applications. And it was just the perfect timing, the perfect mindset.
Yeah, I love the culmination of all of those things, launching an incredible business. But Hannah, I'm always excited for listeners to go and see the businesses of the entrepreneurs that we have here on the show. Because obviously listening to us is one thing, but seeing it in action is an entirely different thing. And I will just share this spoiler for listeners is that when they land on planner.com, which we're going to drop the links as well at the end of today's episode, but when they land there, they're going to see a masterclass in all things business, in all things serving your ideal customers. Because I'll just call out some of my favorite things that I appreciate about your business. You've got a quiz for what type of wedding planner are you? If I'm planning a wedding and, some people are very chill about certain things. Some people are very spontaneous about it. Some people are very structured about it. And it's really cool how you help people to figure out, hey, what is your style? And how can we align that with the right planning process for you? But you also have a free wedding planning checklist. There's just so many things that me as a visitor to your company, to your website, you serve me so deeply. And I know that when listeners and when anybody checks out businesses and websites, it feels like everything's so polished. And it certainly looks like everything's polished with Planner. But of course, that didn't happen overnight. So talk to us about the building blocks, the phases that got you from beginning to, of course, where you are now, helping couples all across the world.
Absolutely. Well, first, I really appreciate that those kind words. It has been a fully iterative process. I remember sitting in a class at school, and I had made a very basic wireframe version of our homepage, and I sort of nudged my classmate and said, "Look at this." And I could tell by the look on her face that it was absolutely terrible. She gave me kind of a nice smile and was like, "Sure, that could really go somewhere." But those ugly first drafts, the kind of ugly pancake, the first one out of in your batch there, it's all about just getting started. And I think that was something that I heard from a lot of founders was that you can't improve if you don't just get the V1 out there, start to iterate, start to really understand what you need to improve and to challenge yourself to get better with every next draft and every next iteration. So we started from fully, mapping out on a whiteboard what not only the homepage, but the underlying product and where we wanted to really hunker down in terms of the foundational product aspects. And I had worked on product before and really closely with engineers and developers, but I had never been so specifically on the front lines decision-making when it comes to prioritization of the product. And that's been definitely a big challenge and obviously the opportunity to decide where do we invest as our first set of features and products. But really it came down to not being afraid to just get that first iteration out there. You don't have to think it's the be all end all version, but just get it out there and know that it's only up from there.
Yeah, and I know that's going to be an encouraging message for all of listeners because, quite frankly, as polished as someone might look at Planner and think, gosh, Hannah's got it all figured out, I'm sure a year from now, you're going to have evolved even further. And so it's that iterative process that you called out. And I'll pick on that term that we've all heard of, the MVP, the minimum viable product. It's something that's easier said than done to embrace and to put ourselves out there. You call it that V1, but what did that evolution look like? I'd love for you to introduce us to what's currently inside of Plannered. If we go back in time, what did it look like? And then you talk about that prioritization. I'd love to know how you prioritize as the executive, as the founder of, hey, here's how we disseminate what's valuable to our users, and here's how we actually fit it into our roadmap.
Yeah, it really went back to wanting to add the most value and address the pain points of the users as quickly as possible. And that being our couples planning their wedding with their support system, friends and family, or a professional planner bringing in their set of clients to the platform to have an even more elevated and empowering experience. So I really took it back to what are the foundational planning aspects that our users will need to rely on. And for us, that was the to-do list, the guest list, and the budget. So those were our three areas to bite off and start with. And the guest list really tends to be the first thing that people dig into in the wedding planning process. That was true for my husband and I, where over a bottle of wine, we sat down and we listed everyone out on his phone in a note. And then we realized, okay, this is actually going to be pretty complex to juggle and organize. So I knew that the guest list would be a really foundational piece to get right immediately off the bat for the users. The checklist came shortly after that, where when you're planning something that goes, 12, 14, 16 months, you really need to know strategically, how am I backing into this ultimate day where things have to be fully ready to go? And for couples who are most frequently planning something like their wedding for the very first time, you have no idea where to start. Do I start with flowers? Do I start with a DJ? Do I start with the venue? That can be a really confusing path to go down. And I was literally texting with a friend this morning about her wedding planning experience. And she said, I have a job, 50 to 60 hour a week job that I'm committed to. How can I make sure that I'm using my time efficiently so that I can actually enjoy this experience? And that was the resounding voice in my head as we were building the product. Users saying, I want to enjoy the process, not just enjoy the ultimate day, but the road to that day be frustrating and overwhelming. And since this is the beginning of an exciting life chapter for people, why does it have to be a frustrating rite of passage? Why can't it be fun and exciting and empowering? So that's the lens that I really had when I thought about what features to start with. And then as we evolved the product, thinking about what's our special sauce, what's our extra flair we can add on so that it not only meets the needs, but exceeds them, surprises and delights people so that they tell their friends, keep coming back, and just to have a really, really positive experience.
Yeah, I love that, especially because you call it out as your lens. And I'm a very visual person, so I do picture things through those visuals. And when I think about your lens, I'll just say this from the outside looking in, is it seems to me that when you think about serving the couples that you care about serving, you're really broadening your lens and looking at the wedding process and the wedding industry as a whole. I think it's so brilliant. Just from the outside, I can see that you have partners with hotels, with restaurants, with photographers. There's so many smart strategic moves that you're making. I wonder, and this is part of the question, I'd love to see how you navigate this. I wonder how much you ask yourself the question of, hey, how can we serve and also embed traditional wedding planners into this? Because that's also part of the process that some people go forth with, some people don't necessarily use. It seems to me like your landscape includes all of these different stakeholders and you've baked strategies into all of that. Talk to us about that approach to it, because I think it's so cool. You've obviously gone through it, so you know all the different stakeholders, but you've also built a business around incorporating them all as well.
Definitely. I really wanted to be very inclusive when it came to building the product, especially as someone who approached the wedding industry not as an industry insider, but as someone who was inspired in my own life from the outside and then coming in to really learn from all these industry experts who've spent their careers navigating the wedding industry. And that meant sitting with wedding planners, florists, venue coordinators to really understand the pain points specifically so that we could be really expert in addressing them head on. Not to bring up a corny business school phrase, but we talked a lot about wanting to be a painkiller and not a vitamin. And so I really wanted Planner to be that painkiller where we come in and we elevate your process and your experience really to the next level, rather than just being, a nice to have or a little something that can spruce up the experience, but truly take it to the next level of efficiency. So I knew that I needed to bring along all the different players and people within the wedding industry to be a part of that journey. Now, I didn't want to go out and replicate other products that are out there in the vendor cataloging aspect, where there's places you can get amazing expertise and inspiration and guidance. So I wasn't looking to go that route, but rather offer a place for project management and collaboration, which I felt was the main missing ingredient in the market. But the players in the industry were a huge part of that, and wanting to make sure that we're inclusive, we're collaborative in the industry, and being a part of the industry and not coming in to exclude anyone from that experience.
Yeah, so well said. Hannah, it's really cool hearing the way you think about all of these things. And one thing that I always get on the case of entrepreneurs that I really respect and admire, one way that I get on their case is I always argue that if you have a great product or service, then it is your obligation. It is actually your duty to become amazing at marketing, because if you have something that's valuable for others, you have to get it in front of them. Otherwise, you're not actually serving anyone. And I can see, I mean, one of the numbers that I saw about your business is that 3,500 couples have joined your planning community. There's so many cool things, and in the impact of that, I'm not sure how you go to bed at night, but I would imagine part of it is you sleep thinking, gosh, we played a role in that. Like, how many smiles did we create? How many family members came to these weddings? How far out is the impact of that? That's such an amazing feeling to go to bed with at the end of the day, that your work can positively impact those people. But of course, that comes through effective marketing. It comes through putting yourself out there. What has that part of your business looked like? Because it's one thing to have a great product or service. It's another thing to get it in front of the right people.
That is so true. And just the other day, I was speaking with a founder and he told me, it's not if you build it, they will come. It's if you market it, they will come. And that has been a huge mental shift for me, where through the founder journey, you learn things about yourself. And I realized that I love connecting with users, connecting with the couples, connecting with experts, and understanding, and then building for those users and those people. And the marketing side and being more kind of self-promoting isn't necessarily my natural zone. So that's a place where I've really needed to push myself. But the marketing side, the wedding industry is so rich, and there's so much for couples and vendors to navigate when it comes to making a name for yourself. And especially for us as a national brand, where there's multiple levels to creating that footprint and getting the brand recognition, where I'm based in Seattle. So slowly starting to get acquainted with my local industry here in the event space, and then also looking to connect with experts across the country who have solidified their brand, and learning from them and seeing where we can use those channels where they've found success. So it's definitely an experiment, which it's fun to see, try a little bit of this, try a little bit of that, and see what ends up working. But word of mouth and really getting people to tell friends, I had an amazing experience with this. Have you heard of Plannerd? You have your wedding coming up, and getting the flywheel going in that way. That has been a huge area of success for us, where people are able to share it organically with their communities. Social media has been big for that over Instagram, and we're just kind of getting our TikTok legs under us. But it's a lot of experimentation at the beginning right now. And really just seeing how things go, seeing the response, and not getting too committed to thinking I know the answer to what is going to be the right way to do it. So being open to letting the data speak for itself, and really being willing to try something, realize that it wasn't the way to go, and then try something new, and just keep it moving, keep experimenting, and really have an open mind.
Yes. Gosh, Hannah, I'm so grateful for how many times you said experiment in that answer, because that's such a huge insight for listeners. I think that people are often looking for marketing answers, but those answers only come through experimentation. Because here's the cool thing, is that this is something I've learned over my 17 years of being an entrepreneur, is that if someone tells me, let's say you're saying, oh, TikTok has worked really well for me. Well, cool. That's what arrived from your experimentation. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for me in the exact same way. We all need to experiment uniquely for our own businesses and our own journeys. And you've also talked about the fact that you have that self-awareness of recognizing, hey, self-promotion doesn't come naturally to me. Let me navigate this. Let me give value in the marketplace in ways that feels right to me. And that's how you're aligning all of the outreach efforts that you're doing. So huge kudos to you. When it comes to experimentation, I hear from a lot of listeners, and we get questions all the time about pricing, because pricing is such an experimental process. There's no one guidebook on how to price your product or service. Obviously, the market's going to dictate that. When I think about your business, Hannah, it's so fun to geek out for a minute, because in an ideal world, your business only gets used once by a couple. That's it. We only want to get married once in an ideal world. And so when we talk about customer retention, that may or may not really apply to your business. You talked about word of mouth, which is hopefully one customer leads to many others. How did you navigate that one-time nature of the people that you serve with regards to the pricing, with regards to not modern day, not traditional customer retention, but that word of mouth? How'd you navigate and build a strategy around those considerations?
Yeah, that's a great question, and actually very timely, which you would have no idea about. But we have a lot of things kind of in the mix that are about to be released that relate to that. And my perspective on it is, when you think about the price and where your customer is getting value from you, if they're already in the door, where can you continue to add value for them across their life cycle with you as a customer, regardless of them, for us in our instance, being really specific to the wedding event, but where can we continue to add value around those needs that they've already expressed to us that they have? So for us, that's, having different resources on the platform that they can experiment with, look into, get guidance from. Some of those being paid, some of them are free. We have a few upcoming resources that'll be released soon where people can, if they're not quite ready to sign up for a more longer term commitment with Planner to really hunker down to plan, they can get some resources on the fly and get a feel for our expertise, our value, and then hopefully that will give them a window into what we can do for them and help them. So to answer your question, it's really understanding that once they find their way to us, how can we continue to add value for them in a number of different dimensions, rather than just thinking our one product, one and done, this is the only way we can serve them. But once they're in the door and once they're in that marketing funnel, we actually start to know a lot about them from what they're expressing that they need. And not that on the data collection side, but more about why they're here, what are they looking for? Even you mentioned the quiz early on. Those results are so fascinating to me because it gives a window into where people's mindset is. And I will tell you, over 80% of the people completing the What's Your Personality quiz end up with the meticulous planner designation. So people coming in the door, these are organized people, they're busy people, they want to have a system, and we can help them with that.
Yeah, that's so cool. Hannah, it makes me want to go here with you while we're together on the air is thinking about what your executive time looks like, because I use the two words at the very top of today's episode to tease it, is strategic and intentional. I feel like every question that I'm asking and all the insights you're giving us, it actually really strengthens our view of you as an executive in those two realms of both strategic and intentional. It's so clear to me how much you're thinking not just about what planner it is today, but where it is that you want to go tomorrow, and how much more deeply you want to serve the people inside of your ecosystem. What's that executive time look like? Because obviously you're not just an entrepreneur, you're also a mom, you're also a wife, you have so much going on that you're balancing personally as well as professionally. Are you carving out executive time weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually to ask yourself these big questions? What are the questions that you're asking yourself? What's that look like?
Oh, that is a constant struggle, and something that I think all execs and leaders deal with on sometimes a daily basis. And especially as a founder, when you're in that, beginning phase where you do tend to, this is like entrepreneur bingo, but wear a lot of hats when you really are every department at the very beginning. I think for me, it has come down to really understanding my strengths and areas where I want experts in that field, in that area. At the very beginning, the very first thing I did was to partner with someone on the technical side. I am sort of a career generalist almost, where I have a degree in Spanish and journalism. I was a writer at a marketing firm, and then I worked at Carta Equity Management in the strategic operations side, and then business school. So I've seen a lot of different areas and touched a lot of different themes and worked with a lot of different experts. And that's something I realized about myself that has been very helpful, is being very curious and open to learning from others while having confidence in the skills and expertise that I bring to the table. And that meant knowing when to bring in someone who's way better at me than something that I could do. So that's meant bringing in a head of engineering who can be responsible and excited to lead on the technical architecture side. And it's meant bringing in a head of marketing who can be really expert and intentional around our marketing efforts. And then I'm sort of the glue, the strategic glue that keeps everything going and together, and innovating as we go.
Yeah, I love that. And on top of all of that human capital, obviously us as founders, we've never been more privileged than before to also have AI as a companion and something that we can lean on for an external perspective that I always say you can't read the label from inside the jar. Now, all of a sudden we have someone or something that we can bounce ideas off of, that we can just play around with ideas. Hannah, what's the world of AI look like behind the scenes at Planner? Is that something you're leaning on a lot? What are some of those clever ways that you're leaning on it? Also, if you want to throw in, if you are using it personally, obviously managing all of the things you're doing, we're always open to those founder insights as well. So I'd love to hear about that.
Totally. I use it in a couple different ways. I am thinking about, one, how our users are using it, and thinking about expectations that they might have when they come to a product, to a SaaS product, to see, what integrations or what things they're looking for. And for us, that's meant making sure we had an AI assistant within the product that they could leverage without having to leave. It's meant having different efficiency gains for the user from an AI perspective. For me, I love to bounce ideas around with an AI assistant to kind of get ideas, to get a different kind of lay of the land. I like to make sure that I've brainstormed solo before I bring it to the chat. I think if you come to bounce ideas around too soon before I've had a chance to really think something through myself, it can be very swaying to hear the response and think that, well, that must be the answer. So I really like to make sure that I'm balancing having time to digest and really ponder independently before I bring an idea, and then doing some stress tests or asking the chat to help analyze or give other input. So one tip I would give is, someone told me, you can ask it to specifically take on the role that you're looking to get expertise in. So sometimes I'll say, pretend that you are a senior sales executive. What do you think of these go-to-market tactics? And then when it goes out to fully understand where that research is coming from, hopefully those insights are coming from maybe an even more strategic place or source, and we can have that shared perspective as we're approaching those ideas. So does that work? Who knows? But it's worked for me thus far.
Yes, I love it. One thing I've been doing recently, Hannah, is just whatever AI tells me, I will very intentionally disagree with it. I will intentionally play devil's advocate, because you're right. It is so easy to start going down that thought path of just being like, yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, that's a great idea. I'll poke holes at anything that it tells me, or vice versa. I'll ask it to poke holes at the ideas that I have. And it's really cool just to have that at our fingertips at any given moment in time. It's also healthy to disagree, healthy to get those other opinions. So I love the fact that you go in first with Hannah's thinking, and then you'll complement it or challenge it through the use of AI. Well, Hannah, I knew that time would fly by with you today. It always does when I'm talking to entrepreneurs who I so respect and admire all the work that you're doing. But I want to put you on the spot one last time. It's the question I ask at the end of every episode, and that is, what's your best piece of advice for listeners? Knowing that we're being listened to by both entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs at all different stages of their own growth journeys, and also knowing that you are one of us, you are a fellow entrepreneur. What's that one piece of advice that you want to leave them with today?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this question, and I think what stands out for me is at the beginning of my founder journey, I kept looking for the answer and asking other founders or business leaders or friends and family, what should I do in this situation? What is the answer? And thinking that I was looking for or seeking out one single truth. And what I realized through the journey that is continuing is that there is no one way to do something. There is no single answer to seek. It really is what works for you, for your business, for your lifestyle, and really understanding who you are, what you want out of this experience is one of the best things you can spend time reflecting on. And that your path will be different than other founders, other entrepreneurs. And it's not about what's the right way to do something, but what is the way that's going to work for your specific goals. And I try to come back to this frequently so that I don't get carried away looking for that secret answer, but really reflecting and understanding it will be different for us and unique for our particular journey. So I'll share that.
So well said. It took me a long time in my early 20s to realize that the secret is that there is no secret. And I love the way that you've articulated that for our listeners here today. I'm also very excited for them to see Plannered in action. You and I talking about it is one thing, but success leaves clues. And you are such a shining example of a business doing so many things right, thinking about the people that you aim to serve. So Hannah, for listeners who want to stop listening to you and I and start seeing Plannered in action, drop those links on us. Where should listeners go from here?
Totally. Please go to plannerd.com, PLANNERD.com. We're on Instagram at Plannered Inc. And I will sometimes sprinkle out some TikToks. It's Hannah Roze on TikTok. Be nice because I'm in my early days of figuring this out, but would love for people to follow along. And if you're wedding planning, if you have people in your life who are wedding planning, would love to help them out.
Yes, and listeners, you already know the drill. We're dropping all of those links down below in the show notes. No matter where it is that you're tuning into today's episode, you'll find a link directly to plannerd.com, so you can click right on through. You don't have to worry about remembering it or anything like that. We're also linking to Plannerd's socials as well as Hannah's personal LinkedIn. So if you want to reach out to her, you hear how much she loves this stuff. She is, I would argue, she's just as much of a business nerd as I am. She sees opportunities. She loves plugging those gaps. So if you want to reach out to her, find her personal LinkedIn down below in the show notes. Otherwise, Hannah, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Brian. What a blast.